Welcome to Fear-Free Childbirth Podcast with Alexia Leachman, the weekly 9-month podcast to help parents-to-be look forward to their fear-free childbirth. Alexia is a pregnancy and head trash clearance coach and the author of Fear-Free Childbirth, How to Have a Stress-Free Pregnancy and a Positive Pain-Free Birth. As a mum who's had 2 fear-free and pain-free births, Alexia wants to share with you how she overcame her pregnancy and childbirth fears so that you can look forward to having a fear-free birth too. Over the 9-month life of this podcast, Alexia will be sharing some real-life stories from mums and dads, insights into the latest childbirth research, inspiring tales from birth professionals, and some tips and techniques for clearing your fears and stresses. If you would like to receive a free chapter from her book, then head over to fearfreechildbirth.com, where you can also sign up for her email series, How to Have a Stress-Free Pregnancy. But now, it's time for the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Fear-Free Childbirth Podcast. This is me, your host, Alexia Leachman, and thank you so much for joining me. Well, I hope you had a fabulous August. As you may well know, I didn't do any podcasts during August, although one did slip out totally accidentally, and that's just because I just haven't been on the ball as I should do. But yes, I've had a break, I've had a holiday, and I've been away with the kids. And let me tell you, I am so pleased that they are at school and at nursery because it's exhausting. It totally is. Well, completely and utterly exhausting. And I'm really, really excited to kick things back off again with the podcast. And I've got loads of really great stuff to bring you over the coming weeks. Now, today I've got a really, really great show for you. I'm chatting to Giuditta Tornetta, who is a doula, among other things, based out of LA. And a little bird told me that she was, in fact, Pink's doula. Pink, the pop star that you've probably heard of. So I'm going to be chatting to her in just a little bit, but I just wanted to share with you some amazing news that I heard about while I was on holiday, and that is that this podcast has been nominated for an award here in the UK. It's been nominated in the Kids and Family category, and I'm currently waiting with all my fingers and toes crossed to find out whether we won. Now, I found out in the middle of August while I had no internet connection, no Wi-Fi, and barely any phone reception, and so I couldn't really do anything about it other than just squeal in utter delight that the podcast has been nominated. So it's amazing, amazing, amazing news. And if you did find out about it, I did try and put a few things on Facebook, on the Facebook group, but it was very difficult for me with very limited connection. So if you did and you voted, then thank you very, very much. But I'll be able to let you know in a few weeks what the story is, whether or not we've won. Obviously, I'll let you know even if we don't, which will be very, very sad. But it's still amazing that the podcast has been nominated. So I just want to thank you for the support in continuing to listen to the podcast. And if you voted, then thank you very much. Right, now, I'm going to now hand over the time that I spoke with Giuditta. Now, Giuditta is an incredible woman. She's based, like I said, out of LA. She's a doula. She's a clinical hypnotherapist. And she's also the author of 2 books. The first book that she wrote was called Painless Childbirth. So during our chat, she's going to be sharing with me her perspective on pain in childbirth and why it is possible to have a painless childbirth. So there's going to be loads of great perspectives that she's going to share during our chat, which are you've just got to listen to what she's got to say, because it really does help you to realise that this isn't just something that only the lucky few experience, that it really is something that we can all experience in our own childbirth experiences. But then we also talk about conscious birthing and how to have a conscious pregnancy as well, and how by living minute to minute can really help to contribute and bring about that painless childbirth experience. But then she also talks about how it's so important to, what she says, do the work, which is what I call, doing that head trash clearance work during your pregnancy, clearing away all your fears and anxieties and stresses while you're pregnant so that you can prepare to be a mother and prepare for the magical moment that is birth. And she's got a great way of helping you to kind of chunk that down, and that's by aligning that kind of work with your chakras and how your chakras are kind of aligned with the way that the baby develops, but also how you can sort of use the chakras to guide you on your own journey of clearing out all the crap in your life and all the stuff in your head that is really going to be preventing you from having an amazing and magical birthing experience. So as you can tell just from my intro, this chat with Giuditta is just super, super fascinating, and she is brilliant, such great energy. So I really hope that you enjoy listening to the time that I spoke to Giuditta when she was in LA and I was over here in the UK. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome, Giuditta, to the Fear Free Childbirth podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be here. So amazed that I'm in the UK right now. I love it.
You most certainly are. Now, before we there's so much that we're going to talk about today that we're going to be talking probably about conscious pregnancy, conscious birthing, painless childbirth, and so much more, I am sure. But before we start talking about all that stuff, would you mind just sort of sharing a little bit about who you are and how you came to work in the birthing world for listeners that may not know you or may not have come across your work before, Giuditta?
Yes, well, funny you asked that. It's a really funny stories, and I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. The long version is on my book, Painless Childbirth, but I was a television producer and director, actually, and I lost my job, and I was boogie boarding, and I was having like a pretty strong conversation with, what I call my higher power, or whatever, it's a female with a great sense of humor. And I was telling her, okay, I have 2 kids that I have to send to college. I want to work. Let's go. Give me a job. And I heard a very, very strong sort of voice. I mean, it wasn't a booming voice. It was a voice inside my womb now that I understand more than my head, that said, okay, do whatever the next person tells you to do.
Really?
And I was like, okay, that's a challenge, and I'm up for challenges. So I think it's the same day or maybe a day later or something. I was still at the beach. The beach is definitely something that I go to get clarity. And I met this random woman that it was not a friend. It was just somebody that I knew. We were talking about, how you're doing, what you're doing. I'm looking for a job, whatever. And she looked straight at me and said, oh my God, there is a lactation class at UCLA, downtown LA, that would be perfect for you. And I looked at her and I went, what are you talking? Sorry. What are you talking about? And I was like, okay. I had taken the challenge. So I went home and I Googled, lactation consultant, lactation educator. I wanted to get like an idea, not only of what they were. I mean, I knew what they were because I breastfed my child, both my children, and they were both born at home. So it's not like I was completely out of that knowledge. But I Googled for a moment and I sort of like looked up the DMN and I said, do you know how much I'm making right now? Are you kidding me right now? But of course I had taken the challenge. So I went down to this like 5 hours. No, it was 5 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week talking about breastfeeding, which was like, okay, put a baby to the boob, eat. End of the class for me, but it was very, very instructive. And there I met a doula, and I had always wanted to write a book about my experience with my daughter, which was a totally painless childbirth. I mean, to the point that I was sleeping and snoring in transition. That's how painless it was. And it's the kind of book that you say, I'm going to write when I am, retired and whatever. My idea was, everybody talks about the horror of birth. I want to be somebody who shared. And of course, terminal uniqueness. I thought I was the only one. It must have been the only one. I never heard of that before. Yeah. But when I had talked about, writing my book, I had talked to an agent and she said, well, unless you are involved with a doctor, a nurse, a midwife or something, nobody's going to buy your book or at the level of publishers because you have no experience. And I thought, well, I'm not going to join up with anybody because I don't know anybody, but I'll just become the expert. And so those two things kind of coincided. That is, I became a lactation educator at UCLA. I met a doula, and I realized that I could actually be at the birth and get involved in this industry so that I could publish my book. And then as a bet with my higher power, who I thought was a great sense of humor. I mean, it was like all kind of funny that way. And then, of course, I went to my first birth. And even though my first birth was very traumatic, it was a teenager, very mistreated by the doctor, ended up with a cesarean at 16, which really didn't need to be there. But the doctor was annoyed because all her girlfriends were there. Because of my suggestion, they would be there to just, encourage her in pushing. And the doctor just couldn't deal with a bunch of, high school girls going, push, come on. And she ended up with a cesarean. And I remember after that first birth, again, two things happened. One, I was in love. I was just in love with the role of a doula. And on the other hand, I went down to the parking lot and I said, are you bloody kidding me? I mean, this is horrible. And of course, the voice, again, with a great sense of humor, said, well, this is not about you. And I got it. Was just a real ha-ha moment. And from that moment on, obviously I did publish my book, which, by the way, unless you sell 1 million copies, you're not making a penny out of it. But I became a doula, and I have been a doula ever since. And it's, I feel almost like every job I've ever had was so that I get the skills to be able to have, to make this what it is today.
So talking about your book then, just talking about the whole idea of a painless childbirth. The idea of pain in childbirth is something that a lot of women really, the idea of the pain is one of the things that really terrifies them. And I've talked a lot on the podcast already that I've had 2 pain-free births. And even when I've shared that with people, in work environments around us, not on the street, but to other women, they're like, nah, that's not possible, And a lot of people don't believe that is possible. And you've written a book about it. So you really mind just telling us a little bit about, how you came to want to write this painless book, but what is is it an 8-step process to having a painless childbirth? A little bit about what that is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So first of all, let's talk about the fact that there is actually research. So, we doula are so gung-ho about evidence-based information. So there is actually research that shows, at least in the United States, that 1% of all births in the United States have been reported as painless. Okay, so we have about 4 million women that give birth every year in the States. And 1% of that is a good 40,000 women that say that they had a painless childbirth. Now, 40,000 women is just in the States. I work a lot in Bali with my friend Robin Lim in this birthing center in Ubud. And I think that their percentage there is way higher because the women's mentality and way of being is very different. Therefore, you will have a much higher percentage of painless, as well as in many other countries, and usually more undeveloped countries in the world, you get a lot more report of painless childbirth. So now let's talk about what painless means, okay? Because I'm not saying that you're not going to feel anything, okay? It's not like, sometimes I get clients that interview me and he says, I really am interested in the painless childbirth. And I'm going, okay, let me explain, okay? So pain is something that happens to you when something has gone wrong. You break a leg, you feel pain. You have appendicitis, you feel pain. It's a continuous pain. There is no positive outcome about it. You break your leg, you don't even know if you're going to walk again. You have appendicitis, you think you're dying. So there is no positive outcome. It is not normal to break your leg or have appendicitis. And therefore, it's something that requires not only your attention, but probably some medication to help you cope with it. And it is a continuous, difficult, painful feeling. With childbirth, what we're dealing with is not pain, but intensity.
Yeah.
Okay? As I tell my people, is like, it's, it's God coming through you and becoming incarnate. It's not going to be like not intense, okay? It's a pretty intense experience. However, it is up to you whether you consider it painful or just intense. Furthermore, there is a positive outcome. We were built for it. There's nothing wrong with it. So it is, our body chemically is completely prepared for it by, introducing oxytocin, which happens to be the love hormone that starts labor, that keeps opening up your cervix, but it also makes you feel loved, and having an epinephrine, endorphins in your body that help you with the intensity. So everything has been designed for you to have a intense yet powerful, magical, easy, painless experience, but you need to be prepared to accept this experience as something that you are a protagonist in versus labor is happening to you and you're out of control and you're a victim and there is nothing you can do about it. So I think that is the huge overall difference.
You mentioned that you felt that in the underdeveloped countries that they have a higher proportion of painless births, and you hinted at that's the kind of the mental piece, the emotional piece. Right. Would you mind just talking a little bit more about that? Because that sounds quite interesting.
Absolutely. So what happens is that in a lot of other countries, I think that the experience of painless comes with the acceptance and the embracing of our power as women. It's like, of course we're going to have a baby. Of course we're going to know what to do. Of course our body knows exactly what to do. Of course this is not a big deal. Of course I shouldn't be afraid of it. I have seen my mother, my sister, my cousin, my aunt, my neighbor do it because I live in a smaller village, so it's not like such a big, oh my God. And I haven't seen all the movies that tell me that I'm going to scream my head off and bite off the head of my husband and so they're not, the media is also for sure responsible of a lot of the pain that women feel in the Western world because the misinformation is incredible. If you go into a village, like let's say you go into a Polynesian village or you go into any other village, the women that when you're pregnant and you walk around are going to come around to you and say, oh my God, how beautiful, you're going to do this, it's going to be so easy, don't worry about it. I mean, that's what they're going to say. Because if they were to say, oh my God, you have no idea, I had a horrible birth, my baby was stuck and they would actually put the juju on you and it wouldn't be accepted, So it's really very much a mental attitude, coupled with the fact that, remember, one of the things that I ask a lot during my classes is, and I just want to experiment with you, is that how long do you think labor lasts?
Well, mine have been very short, so I'm going to be biased towards the short end. But I know some women have it for days. But are you talking about the active bit? The active bit, is that the bit you mean?
Well, it's a bit of a tricky question. But the bottom line is that labor lasts 1 minute.
1 minute? You're kidding me.
That's it. right? Well, think about it. A wave lasts 1 minute. Then you have a reprieve, right?
Yeah.
No matter what, no matter who you are, how old you are, where you live, how intelligent, how strong, how weak, no matter what, labor lasts about 1 minute. Then you have a reprieve.
Yeah.
Right? I agree with that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I totally agree with that.
So as long as you live in the minute,
Yeah.
minute by minute, you're either managing a wave, which will go away, guaranteed,
Yeah.
or you're feeling pretty good in between. Now, not everybody feels good in between. Not everybody, I mean, there are very few exceptions, but I would say that 99.9 women in the world, or maybe, I don't know, forget the statistics, but for the most part, labor is 1 minute long.
Yeah.
We can all manage 1 minute.
When you put it like that.
Is hanging on to what just happened. Oh my God, that was really hard. And fearing what's about to come. Oh my God, I can't do another one. Which makes us go in the past and in the future, which is the sure way to not be able to manage it and to feel more pain. Past and future will bring fear. Fear brings adrenaline. Adrenaline goes into the blood system, and adrenaline contracts every muscle, which makes labor very painful. It's like, it's not just, like I say, Birkenstock, sprout eating, granola stuff. It's chemistry.
Yeah.
Right? So automatically, in a country where being a mother is just the way it is, and you live in a village and everybody around it has done it, makes it so that you have less fear. Therefore, labor goes faster, labor is painless, labor is quiet. Oh my God, some of the women are quiet for hours in Bali, and you're just like, you can't believe that they're so quiet, But it's normal. Right? There is more fear maybe in breastfeeding sometimes. There is more fear in the man, the patriarchal, coming to you and taking you to the hospital. But when you go to a midwife and then you're in a birthing center, or you just have your neighbor midwife coming into your village, it's like, yeah, you've heard some stories that were difficult, but for the most part, women just popped out babies because that's what we do. However, in the Western world, we have to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's very different. There's almost like no need almost for childbirth education or even conscious living or meditation or anything like that in these countries. But there is a need for that in this country because basically it's not that we need to learn anything. We need to unlearn a lot.
Yeah. And we need to shake off all that conditioning, all those fears, all that stress that we have adopted because of the lifestyles we're living.
Absolutely.
And actually, if we get back to basics, we're in a much better position.
And when I was writing my second book, Conversations with the Womb, I was really looking at the way women in the Western world have really had to embrace patriarchy and forget their femininity to be able to make it financially in the world. In the business world, a woman who is, a man is called aggressive, a woman is called emotional or a bitch. You have to learn to be not emotional. You have to learn not to listen to your guts. You have to be logical. So a lot of women in the Western world, to make it, rightly so, don't get me wrong, I don't have anything wrong against women working or feminism. I'm very much a feminist at heart. But all of that has been taken, instead of embracing even more our femininity, has been taken as matching up with the patriarchal model. And so we have become warriors in the patriarchal model, and all of a sudden, I can't begin to tell you how many presidents of company, big time lawyers I deal with, and I keep telling them, and sometimes they call and say, I don't know what to do with this baby, and I'm like, you probably have 20, 30, 200 people under you, and you know exactly what to tell them to do. Why are you getting lost with a baby? But they have forgotten. They are perfect bosses. They're fantastic lawyers, but they have forgotten to get in touch with their body, and with their feminine self, and with their womb, with their roots, where they came from, the relationship with the mother. A lot of the fear that happens in childbirth is the fear of being your mother, of becoming your mother,
Yeah.
or the fear of becoming a mother and losing yourself. And all those thoughts come in right in labor. It's like, why am I doing this? When you feel the intensity, you're thinking, why am I doing this? I'm not going to be a good mother. Adrenaline, 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 fear, catecholamine, closes the cervix, makes it a lot harder. I'm not good at this. My body's not good at this. And of course you have the doctor to say, oh, you're not dilating a centimeter an hour, which is what the book says. And it's like, oh my God, I'm not good. I don't trust my body. I can cut a $3 million deal, no problem. But having a baby, I was not born for that. I mean, it's insane.
So when you're when you are faced with people like that, the people you've just described, that are very, very effective in that in that patriarchal society, and
Yes.
you can see that they're full of fear. And so, how will you? What's the process that you would take somebody through to help them to be in a more mindful place when they're giving birth, and more present?
Well, okay, so the most important thing is a commitment, okay? The reason why people find me to be their doula, or even find my book for that matter, or my CDs, or whatever it is that they find, there is a reason why we have come together. That reason might not be that I will be able to help them get to a painless childbirth this time. That's not the point. The point is that they have finally have realized that they need to do some work. Now, the work cannot be done in a month, I mean, some people can. Everything is possible. As you know, birth is so unpredictable, you never know.
Yeah.
But at least that there is a curiosity about becoming conscious. And that's the first step. The first step is to become conscious that there are barriers. The second step, and I do a lot of that with my clients through hypnosis, is to finding out what pacts we have made that made us believe that we are not good enough, not strong enough, we can't trust our body. And as you know now, today we know that the majority of our deep-rooted beliefs stem from what happened between 0, or really -0, because I think it starts in the belly, up to 3 years old, which is really the non-cognitive time of your life, and the time that you hardly ever remember.
Yeah.
But we are born into this world, and everything not completely empty, not a clean slate by any means, but certainly a sponge. A sponge and a computer with a tremendous amount of memory.
Yeah.
But we are inputting information at an incredible speed from 0 to 3 years old.
Yeah.
And what happened between 0 and 3 years old is the basis of what our belief system is and what resides in our primordial brain, which is the brain that comes into effect during labor, because the intensity of the experience is such that you can no longer go by logic. You can no longer have a wall up. You can no longer pretend anything. because you're completely encompassed by this amazing experience. And so if you haven't dealt with your unconscious, then that's where the seed of the fear was planted, and it could be now a sequoia tree. It just depends on who you are. Now, it's not about pulling down the sequoia tree, but it's about embracing it, understanding it, climbing on top of it, and using it to see the entire valley. So it's not about going back to the past and rehash it with a therapist that goes, and nothing wrong with therapists, don't get me wrong in there, but it's about taking charge. Today, if you are pregnant, you have chosen no longer to just have a responsibility over your own life. You have chosen to be responsible for another human being, at least until they're about 3 years old. Then they start getting their own opinion. But you're certainly responsible to them at least until they're 18. So that is the first step to knowing that as a mother, you lead by example, and not by, do what I say, not what I do. So if you're really conscious about that, if you really come together and decided to have a child this way, then you cannot but take this amazing time, if you haven't done it before, to spend understanding who you are, understanding your triggers, clearing up what doesn't work anymore, harnessing everything that works, and really trusting the fact that the only thing you've come into this world to do, according to Mother Nature, is to birth a baby. That's it. You're not here to be a lawyer. You're not here to be a writer. You're not even here to be a doula. You're just here to give birth. That's it. Right? As a primordial animal, that's all you're here for. And therefore, that's the easiest job. That's a painless job. You were born to do that. You got to do nothing but remove all that weed that stands in the way that you have let grow over the years, over this very clear, easy, simple, painless path. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because I have such a methodical mind, what I did do is that, there is nothing revolutionarily new about my work. But what I found in reading many birthing books, as well as just self-help, spiritual book, granola sprout eating book kind of a thing, I found that there were some amazing ideas and fantastic concepts about becoming conscious and living a conscious life. But nobody kind of gave me tools. Like, I'm a tool-needing person, I need to know, okay, how do I go back to 0 to 3? And once I'm there, what do I do, So what I did is that, which is another miracle of my crazy life, is that I finished writing a book, which was very much a stream of consciousness of my experience and of my spiritual journey to get to it and all of that. And then I went back boogie boarding, because it seems like I gotta go back boogie boarding. I need some of that right now. But anyway, I went back and I really asked for a structure, because I am Virgo rising. I need a structure. I need tools. I need a structure. It's very, very important to me. And I was given this metaphor with the waves about the chakras and the energy centers of the chakras. And, it's a long story what the correlation between the waves and the chakra is, but never mind. For now, go read my book. But what I did is that then I realized that if I take every month of pregnancy and use that month to just clear and concentrate on one specific chakra, I can go on to first, second, third, and so forth. And then I discovered there are actually many, many philosophies all over the world where chakras are infinite. Like acupuncture, it's based on chakras, and it's got thousands of thousands. So I chose to use 9 of the 9 months of pregnancy, which actually there's 10, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to be poetic about that. But what was incredible, which really blew my mind, is that when I started putting down this little list of, so in a table that is in my book, you have the chakras, then you have the position of the chakra in the body, then you have a basic human right. Every chakra is attached to, what does it represent? First chakra represent the roots, right?
Yeah.
It's in your perineum. It represents the roots, which means tradition, culture, family, where you come from, and all of that, which is a great place to start your healing. And then you go into what is a basic human right attached to that chakra, and the basic human right is the right to be here. Now, so many girls, their parents wish they were boys. So right there we have, especially in many different countries of the world, it's starting to change that. But right there you can see that there could be like a complete break of, if you don't believe you deserve to be here, forget about it. There is no roots. Your plant has no roots, right? But the amazing correlation is not that, which is pretty interesting, is what happens with the baby in each month. So the first chakra is survival, roots, and your right to be here. And the baby is only a heartbeat and a yolk sac, which is as basic as you can be. Fast forward to, for instance, 5th month, it's the throat chakra, which is the right to speak and hear the truth. And the baby in the 5th chakra, it's been kicking all along, but in the 5th month is when you really hear your baby's kicking your belly, wanting to communicate, right? Yeah. And in the 4th chakra, which is the heart chakra, the baby in the 4th month, the sexuality of the baby will be decided. So up to the 4th month, it could be a boy or a girl, but then in the 4th month, it's going to be a boy or a girl, which, its sexual organs are developing one way or another, and it's got nothing to do with their sexual interest. It's not about you become a boy and you want a girl or anything like that. We're way past that. But it's the intimate relationship of the 4th chakra, right? Yeah. It's the relationship with love in general. In the 8th chakra, that blew my mind away. The 8th chakra is the right to be, your divine powers, right? And in the 8th chakra, for sure the 8th month, the baby has dreams. We know now that the baby has dreams in the 8th month in the womb. And God, higher power, Allah, I don't care what you call it, often communicates with us through dreams. Yeah. So, and it's not like I figured that out. I didn't invent this. No. This is 3,000 years old. Yeah. This is just correlation. And if you go through this path, then you go, okay, you start with, what is my relationship to my family, to my culture, to my tribe? How do I let go of what works? I want a home birth. Everybody's saying I'm crazy. That's my family, my mother. How do I deal with that? Then you go into the 2nd chakra. How are my relationship with people? My right to feel, my right to my feelings. The 3rd chakra. How is my relationship with myself? How do I believe in myself? Do I have self-esteem? So we have specific tools that we can use to go through and clean up those weeds that I was talking about in the path that we were born in. We were born with a clear, imagine this gorgeous clear path between two meadows, and it's clear, and it's a beautiful day, and at the end of that there is a child, and that's your giving birth. We were born with that, but it's overgrown with media, people, everybody. When you're pregnant, everybody stops by to tell you their horror story, and you believe it, and everything that has happened to you. So that's what painless childbirth is all about.
I love that. I love that. The bringing together with the chakras and the 9 steps. And that's such a great way of helping people to kind of almost to, when people have got, because one thing that I talk a lot about is head trash, which is all the negative thoughts, feelings and emotions in our heads. And so I help people to kind of clear their head trash. And often it's just so overgrown, or it's so chaotic in their heads that it's just too overwhelming and they just don't know where to start. So this sort of using the chakras is such a lovely way to help people navigate the mess that's in their head and start picking bits off in, chunking it down for them. So that's just, and the fact that it also aligns with how the baby's evolving in the pregnancy is just brilliant. I just want to give you a high five for spotting that one. Well done.
It just came to me, man. It was like, whoa, okay. A lot of my life is like, are you sure? Okay. I mean, even when I'm in the room with a client, sometimes people, especially because I train doulas now, and because of my foundation, I have a lot of doulas that I mentor, and they kind of ask me, so, how do you come to a decision to do this and that, or that and this? And I'm just going, frankly, I have no idea. Because when I'm at a birth, I leave me out of the room. And when I walk in, I'm just like, you told me to do this. We were boogie boarding. It's like, no, you come over and give me some ideas here on how to deal with this. And when there is commitment, mine too, don't get me wrong. I was just at a birth. It was 48 hours. And for the first 24, it was like 1 million people in that room. There was a mother-in-law, a father-in-law, a sister, the nephew. Anyway, I don't want to give too many details because it is an anonymous situation. And let's just say there is a lot of people. And a lot of people with a lot of opinions. And then this client all of a sudden said to me, I'm going to have my birth coach from another city come in. And I'm like, okay. So the first 24 hours, I could not get it. It wasn't happening. I even noticed hindsight that I wasn't like using all my tools, because I was like, I kept asking myself, what am I doing? Am I doing this right, wrong, And sure enough, she was on her route to a cesarean birth. Oh. No doubt. And then all of a sudden, shift changed, new midwife, new nurse. People was 2 o'clock in the morning. Finally, they were asleep. They went home. And the doctor came in and she said, okay, you have 1 hour. That's it. 1 hour, or we're going to have a cesarean. And that is when something turned on. It just turned on. And I remember I got completely in my body because everybody had left, which is not a good excuse. And, I will try to do better. But I needed that clean energy, And I just said, the two of you now get in bed together. It was a hospital, regular hospital. Getting back together, I'm going to stand outside, guard, and you get this oxytocin going. And they did. And again, that was just a suggestion. It's something that it's not unusual. There's nothing, but it was just at the right suggestion at the right time. And I didn't do anything. They got it, and it exploded. Like, this baby was not doing well, so it couldn't get Pitocin. Everybody wanted to give it Pitocin because it was, the usual thing is not progressing fast enough, whatever. So we were blessed by the fact that the baby was not doing well so that he wouldn't get Pitocin. But we were also, because the baby wasn't doing well, just according to the machine, we could possibly get a cesarean. So she was able to raise the level of Pitocin so that her contraction started really working and really opening up. And when I came back in, we noticed that every time we spoke to the baby's heartbeat that was going to go down came up. Oh. So we literally spoke to the baby for 4.5 hours. Wow. And I was like, if they would get tired, I would go, and then we're going to go to the beach. And at the beach, we're going to surf. And then I would get tired, and Dad would start talking. And then, you know, there were like waves. Dad started getting tired, and then Mom started to talk. And
I love that.
It was sheer magic.
Wow.
Sheer magic. And of course, it ended up with a vaginal birth, and it was beautiful. And the woman we all had this incredible experience of magic. It's sort of like everybody left, and this incredible presence came in, told us what to do. We did it. We trusted completely. Even though it's like, okay, I'm going to have a cesarean. What is my husband spooning in bed with me is going to do it? You know what I mean? She totally trusted. I totally trusted. Everybody in the room totally trusted. And we created magic, you know? And that is not a channel. It's not the spirit of this person coming through. It's just what I call in my second book, what I call uterus mundi. You know, based on the idea of anima mundi, I think that more than anima mundi, there is a uterus mundi. Okay. Every being in the world, every being that has a heartbeat has been through a womb.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a mammal, but you have been in a womb. And it could even be your father's womb if you're what do you call it, a little seahorse, okay? Whatever you want to call it, all right? It's not just for women. And that womb that has you incubating and becoming whatever it is that you're going to end up being is the seat of all knowledge, all potentiality. And if you tune in and listen to it, whether you're a man, you can tune in to where you come from, or a woman, you tune in to something that calls your attention monthly by bleeding. Please listen to me, talk to me, change me, care for me. If we listen to that, and we realize just the magic of this organ, how can it be a painful experience when you're like tapping into the magic? I mean, for God's sake, a human being is growing in there. That's freaky.
I know. It totally is. Even when I was pregnant, I was at moments just freaking out of my own body doing what it was doing. It just completely freaks you out, doesn't it? At times, it really
crazy, does. You know? Now, granted, one of the things that we really have to make sure is that women don't feel they're not good enough because they didn't have a painless experience, okay? Because my next book, it's coming up about that. I'm not positive enough. That's why I had a cesarean. I'm not conscious enough. That's why I had a bad birth. That's not it, okay? That's not it. What we need to understand is that, first of all, the baby is part of this equation. So sometimes babies decide to be born a different way. But more importantly, it's not that having a drug-free, pain-free vaginal birth is the ultimate end result. The ultimate end result is to have a conscious birth. However you get there, you get there. My first child was not painless by any means. He was posterior. Granted, it was only 12 hours, which is very short now, I know. It seemed forever. And I pushed from something like 3 hours. It was insane. Not painless, but It was a great opportunity for me to go, okay, now I got it. Now I got it. And my daughter then came in 3 hours, which helps being painless when it's only 3 hours. Okay, so let's not forget that, because if you've been in labor for 2 days, it's going to be really hard to have a painless childbirth and not to get some help. And it's okay to get some help after 24 to 48 hours, right? But, I literally said to my body, okay, here's how it's going down. We're going to have a wave. You're going to open up. So the beauty and the magic, it's not about pain. It's not about vaginal. It's not about anything else but living a conscious life minute by minute, allowing and trusting your body that we were born to do this. Removing the crap. Maybe I should find a better word, but removing the weeds
the head trash. Yeah.
Removing that and accepting that whatever happens, it's perfect. It's a wonderful, beautiful experience, even in tragedy. It's the hardest thing to talk about. The ultimate tragedy, which as doulas, after a certain amount of years, you all experience, and easier said than done. But it's the magic that we have lost. It's just incredible magic that,
It is birth is truly a magical experience. And I think when women don't prepare for it or, start preparing themselves mentally, start acknowledging the potential magicalness of that situation and treating it, a lot of women will spend so long planning the nursery, researching the pram, buying the sling or whatever it is, they'll spend so much money and mental energy on things like that. And the birth is almost an afterthought. And it's really, it should be the other way around. It really doesn't matter about the nursery. The little one's going to be with you for the first 3 months anyway, or however long. It's not going to need a nursery or a cot. So
I know. Do you have a diaper? Do you have a blanket? Do you have a boob?
You're done.
Good.
Yeah. And then that really, because they just kind of, and then they miss it, and it's come and it's gone, and they've missed this moment where they're meeting. Yeah. This is going to be one of the people that they're going to love the most in the whole wide world, and they're going to meet them that day, and they don't plan for it. That's, I think, the tragedy as well, isn't it? It's
starting to change. It's starting to change. That's why doulas are coming up. Yeah. New thing. Midwives are getting stronger in their presence. I don't know in the UK, but in the United States, we almost doubled our home birth percentages. So there is a revolution. It is happening. It is starting. We got to give it time. Hospitals. Just 12 years ago, I was a witch. I was like a witch brewing witch. God, I was, doulas were just so marginalized. And not that, you still have quite a few pretty weird experiences, but they're getting better. Women are starting red tents all over the place.
What's a red tent? For those people that don't know what a red tent is.
Alexia! My God! No, I'm just kidding. First of all, pick up the book called The Red Tent by Diana Diamant. It's an amazing book. But the red tent basically is the place where Jewish women in particular, but most women in the world, relegated themselves during the period. So especially in the Jewish Orthodox religion, a woman that was bleeding was considered inadequate to handle food or stuff like that. I think it really is is a great inventions of women, instead of looking at it as men relegated them to, oh, you're dirty because you're bleeding. Because the woman who's bleeding is like, the heck with you, you cook your own food, man. I'm going to the plant with my girlfriends. And that's where women gather together during their period, and they pamper each other, they talk to each other, they express their emotions, they feel free about their emotion. So this is a tradition that was very, very strong in many cultures around the world, and especially in the Jewish culture, and that is getting revived.
Okay.
That women are coming together and talking about their menstrual cycles without shame, talking about alternative way of managing their fertility versus, getting this horrible medicine that destroyed their uterus and all of that. I mean, the staggering numbers of women that are getting hysterectomies in United States, it's scary. It's scary. That's how menopause is dealt with in the United States. It's scary. So there is more awareness of that in this Red Tent movie. Nicola Goodhall, her school is called the Red Tent Doula.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Interviewed a few weeks
ago. And traditionally, even after birth, many cultures relegated women, to doing nothing for 30 days, and they're called the cuarentena in Mexico, where they stayed 40 days off washing the dishes, cleaning, or everybody does everything for you. In Korea is the same, in China is the same, a lot of Asian countries are like that. So women for centuries and centuries and centuries have taken care of their womb, adventures, whether it's in the monthly place of the Red Tent, or in, when they have babies and they take care of one another. But we lost all that. Yeah. We lost all that. We were on the rag. We had the curse. PMS is a Western culture invention. Yeah. There's no women with PMS in China until, a few years ago. There's no PMS in Africa. It's a patriarchal, and I'm not putting men down, or, it's not that point. It's just that we've taken that route. We've taken a path that is not our path. Our path is a different path. Not better, not worse. It's just our path. And our path, there is celebration in menstruation. There is celebration in childbirth. No fear, trusting your body. Take care of the mother, loving the mother after she had a baby. Of course, breastfeed your baby. Do everything that you were meant to do, really.
Well, Giuditta, thank you so much for sharing what you've shared welcome. Today. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you about painless birth, conscious birthing, and everything else that we've talked about. It's just been wonderful. If anybody wants to, we've talked about your book, you've got website, would you mind just sharing where people can find out more about your work, so they can, websites, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff would be absolutely fabulous.
Absolutely. So my website is joyinbirthing.com. My books are on Amazon UK for sure.
Yeah, I'll put links.
Thank God they're in English. Yeah. I also do a workshop all over the world called Loving the Mother, and that website is lovingthemother.com. I do it with Nicola Goodhall and Robin Lim, two amazing women, and the next one is coming up in December, New Year's Eve. And I'm coming to Scotland. I'm really excited about that, and I'm doing actually a Healing the Money third chakra workshop for Halloween. We're definitely doing the witch's brew to make more money in any sort of business, whether you're a yoga teacher or a therapist or a doula. And that website is healingthemoney.com. Okay. So I'm also a geek. That's why I have a lot of websites.
And you're based out of LA, aren't you? So have you got anything happening in the US? Because I know a lot of my listeners are in the US. So what are you doing in the US? if anything?
Well, in the U.S., I mainly I have my private practice as a doula, but I also have it's called joinbirthingfoundation.org. I have a foundation where we're about 35 doulas, and we help 150 women. We're volunteer doulas, and we help 150 women each year. And these women are either in the foster care system, they are in homeless shelters, there are women that are victims of sexual abuse, victims of torture even from other countries. So we try to help for free as many women as we can, because otherwise the women that we deal with would probably be completely alone at the hospital if we wouldn't be here with them.
Wow, amazing.
So, and we're soon going into the jail system so that we can maybe help some women that are incarcerated, because those are shackled to the bed when they are in labor, really? Even though it's against the law. So, goodness. It's good to give back.
Yeah, sure is. Wow, no, your work sounds amazing. Just wonderful, wonderful work. So thank you once again, Giuditta, for coming on the Childbirth Podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that podcast interview. I really, really enjoyed chatting to Giuditta. Now, she shared a ton of really interesting links, great books, and lots of info. So if you want to find out more about all that stuff, then just check out the podcast show notes at fearfreechildbirth.com/painless. That's all you need to do is fearfreechildbirth.com/painless for all the links and everything you need to know, and a little bit of a summary about what we chatted during our chat. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in. You've just been listening to Alexia Leachman from the Fear Free Childbirth Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, she'd really love it if you left a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or shared it with a friend. And don't forget, to get a free chapter from her book, head over to fearfreechildbirth.com to get your copy, as well as finding other episodes in this podcast and more about how Alexia can help you with pregnancy and birth preparation coaching. Until next time.